Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott, I'm the Emperor of Stomaria, and today we're creating an ongoing series about how to start a micronation. Now, Stomaria was founded a little under 2 years ago now, and I like to think that in that time that I picked up on a few things about how to set up and how to run a micronation. Now, obviously, these are only my own thoughts, my own experiences. Other micronations will be different, and there's a lot of caveats for all the videos that we're going to be doing about this. But with that out of the way, let's get started. Now, when I see new micronations get set up, I notice a pattern. So you'll have a micronation, they'll come up with a flag, a name, a government type, and very quickly they'll realise that they've chosen the wrong flag, they've chosen the wrong name, and they've chosen the wrong government type. And then they start to change and amend things in the public space. And this is a problem for me, as well as I'm sure many other micronational leaders, because if you're trying to associate either through an alliance or a trade agreement or whatever it might be with another micronation, and that micronation keeps flip-flopping as to what it is, what it stands for, and how it's, its brand, if you like, it doesn't inspire confidence. There's a lot of red flags. And to me, when I see that, I see a micronation that either hasn't done its research, hasn't given any thought into what it's doing or what it's striving to do, and it's not someone or something that you want to necessarily affiliate with, because what you might be, I might form an alliance or have a declaration of friendship with a particular micronation, and next week their name will change, their flag will change, their government type will change, and all of a sudden we're associated with a micronation that no longer resembles what we initially aligned ourselves with. And this is a problem that I find in the micronational community at large. It's particularly true on Reddit or Discord or Twitter or whatever else, but it's pretty widespread. And I think this comes down to the fact that micronational leaders, or when micronations are set up, they find that it is actually some work involved to actually make it successful. And when they realise this, and they realise that they can't do what they wanted to do initially, they try to shake things up, if you like. They try to rebrand themselves because it gives them something to do. It gives them something to strive for. But it just creates a lot of trust issues, I find. So that's sort of my 2 cents when it comes to choosing a name in particular, but also a flag and a government type. So that's just one thing to mention right off the bat. Now, with regards to choosing a name in particular, there isn't really a right way to do this. Some micronations, they choose their name based on the founder's name. Some do it by merging 2 or more words together to create a new word. Some use Latin phrases or a Latin word and insert that into the micronation. Some micronations use a random name generator online, and they pick their name that way. And there really isn't a right way to do it. And if you're like Stomaria, then you probably tried all of those methods and then settled on something else completely different anyway. As a side note, though, I would say that micronations that choose their names based on geographical locations, I think that's a mistake, personally. Purely because, let's say hypothetically, you lived in Cornwall and you owned a plot of land in Cornwall, and you established the Kingdom of Cornwall as a micronation. And then you ended up selling that plot, selling that land, and moving yourself and your operations to Devon or Yorkshire. Suddenly the name Kingdom of Cornwall doesn't make any sense. And, you know, you would probably have to change it. And this obviously harks back to what I was saying earlier about micronations that change their name too often. You know, they don't appear stable or reliable or consistent, and then that creates problems further down the line. So, in my opinion, you want to choose a name that is quite ambiguous, that's quite all-encompassing. So it doesn't matter where you are, where you buy and sell plots, or whatever it might be. The name doesn't have to change based on your location. Now, as I said, Stomaria did end up going through all of the process I've just mentioned. We started off trying to base the name off my name and that of my wife, tried using our full names, merging them together, our surnames and merging them with another word. We tried Latin phrases or Latin words. In desperation, did genuinely try a random name generator just to see if it could spark some inspiration. But it was just never the right name. And this is fine for micronations to do. You can play around with names, just not in the public space. You need to decide and settle on a name before you launch your micronation. Because if you go through the process of changing your name every 5 minutes because you're not too sure about this or that, whatever else, it gives a very poor impression. And a lot of people think, even now, that Stomaria is based off the surname of my wife and I, so Stott, Stomaria. And that's not actually the case at all. It's purely a coincidence. And I'll run through exactly why we settled on the name Stomaria, where it comes from, what the inspiration was, where the inspiration for the name Stomaria came from. And yeah, we'll go through that process. So there's a lot of tangents to this, so you'll have to bear with me as always. But the name Stomaria actually goes back to the early 2000s, where the initial inspiration for our micronation for Stomaria actually came about. So in the early 2000s, there was an RTS game, a real-time strategy game called Empire Earth. And I suspect that game is older than a lot of the Micronational leaders that are currently watching this video. But in that game, you would build a civilization. So you would collect resources, you would develop technology, you would build armies, you would expand, you would use diplomacy and trade and all the rest of it to advance your civilization. And that in itself sparked, at the time, an idea that me and my younger siblings, we would then take those ideas, we would go out, we would build forts, we would build dwellings, we'd build bridges, we'd create weapons and invite our friends over, and we'd have these massive battles, we'd have a system of taxation, we'd have an agrarian economy. It was really something, and if I can find them, I will find some of the videos and photos of what we were doing at the time, although I don't think it'll do it justice. But it was definitely something that it formed a big part of our childhoods. And later on, when me and my wife were walking into town, we were just having general chit-chat, and we ended up discussing what we used to do in our childhoods. And I got on to what we used to do. At the time, we called it the Empire in honor of Empire Earth, where our inspiration for that came from. And she was, she was impressed. She was interested, and she said something along the lines of, "Wouldn't it be awesome if we could just do that now?" And I sort of took that one brief off-the-cuff statement to heart, and 2 years on, here we are. And yeah, so that's where the initial inspiration for Stomaria comes from. But the name Stomaria itself comes from a very specific part of Empire Earth. For those very, very, very few of you that have actually played it, you may remember that in the Stone and the Copper Ages, epics I think they call them, the citizens, if you give them a command, will occasionally say Stoma, and that is where the name Stomaria comes from, in honour of the RTS game that initially inspired the Micronation that we are developing today. And I have toyed with the idea of playing Empire Earth and posting it on this channel, purely so people can see what I'm talking about, why. I mean, it's aged terribly, frankly. I mean, what can you expect from a game that's, 20 years old plus? But it was a fantastic game, and it is a fantastic game. Not going to lie, I do occasionally, even now, play it in my spare time, because it's a nostalgia thing for me. But I have toyed with the idea of posting some of it online. The only reason I haven't is I don't want to fall into the trap of becoming a gamer channel, which I think happens quite a lot with Micronations, that try to build civilizations online, so they get people involved in an online capacity, and then it's not really a route I want to go down. But for the sake of people understanding what I am talking about, where the inspiration for Stomaria comes from, then I might post 1 or 2 videos of gameplay on Empire Earth. But we'll have to see about that one. So those are just my own thoughts about how you should go about naming your micronation and where Stomaria derived its name from. So if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like. If you want to keep updated with future video content, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.